Hi, welcome back to another Restrap kind of bikepacking how-to. Slightly different one this time. Instead of putting luggage on your bike, it's turning your bike into luggage, ready to fly. Using a cardboard box that you get a bike in. If you don't actually have one yourself, then most local bike shops will probably give you one anyway, because they tend to get deliveries in them. You can get posh bike bags, and if you're flying lots and lots and you're flying to the same destination and coming home from that destination, at some point it might be worth investing because they're a little bit easier to wheel around the airport. But this is a way cheaper option, and also if you're flying into somewhere and then doing a point-to-point ride and riding back from somewhere else, then you would need something disposable, and a bike box is perfect for that. Fairly simple to pack the bike, but there are a few things to look out for, and the most important thing is obviously making sure the bike doesn't get damaged in transit. So we'll give you some tips about how to do that and how to fit that in here. Okay, so first things first, going to strip the bike down a little bit to fit in the box. You'll notice that we've already taken the pedals off. Next thing I'm going to do is remove the bars. Using a multi-tool for this, generally if I was at home, I'd probably use kind of full set of Allen keys, etc. But if you're flying into somewhere and you're ditching your bike box because you're going away on a trip, then ultimately you can be building it back up with multi-tools and also stripping it down to come home with multi-tools. So it's worth just knowing that you can do it all with whichever tool you're taking with you. Okay, so there we go. Obviously you ideally don't want to lose any of your bolts. So I tend to just refit everything together just to hold it all in one place. You know where they are when you get to your destination. Obviously makes for really exciting watching as well. Just like dub over some really exciting music on this, like full on dramatic. Next thing is seat post. Depending on the size of the frame, you might be able to just slam the seat post all the way down into the frame. I tend not to do that, partly just because you risk scratching the seat post, and also just gives you a bit more space to play with later on as well. Next thing is kind of taking the wheel off, but before we do that, it's a little bit easier to secure the bars. What I'm going to do is just tape them here, but rather than taping them straight to the frame, don't want to scratch anything. It's a beautiful bike. Personally, I don't mind getting scratches on my bike when I'm riding. It just feels like it's part of the game, but I'm gutted when I put a dent in it or scratch it while I'm traveling. It just feels a bit unnecessary, really. I've seen that the wheel is going to get in the way, so we'll leave that there and we'll take the wheel off and come back to finish it off. So my little multi-tool doesn't have a 6mm Allen key. The biggest one that it's got on there is a 5mm, and that is a 6mm, so I'm going to have to get another tool. I told you it was worth double checking. Right, back in the game with a full complement of larger Allen key bits. Wheel out. Very first thing to do when you take the wheel out, I always just slot the axle back in. A, because it would be heartbreaking to get to your destination and realise you'd left it on the floor. The other thing is, it actually just helps protect the fork from getting squidged together when it's packaged up, so it's worth just refitting that anyway. Cool, so where were we? We were going to tape the handlebars, but with the bars in this orientation, it helps just protect the levers from getting scuffed or bashed or knocked or broken. I definitely know at least a couple of people who have got to their destination, unboxed their bike, and they've had a broken lever because something has knocked against it. There we go, cool. So that's all pretty sturdy now. Nothing is particularly rubbing. Certainly feels good enough to put in the box. This is quite a big bike box actually. So we don't need to take the rear wheel off. Occasionally with slightly smaller ones or different dimensions where they're a bit deeper, you end up needing to take the rear wheel off as well. If you do that, then same applies, put the axle back in. Other thing is I will quite often just take off the rear mech as well, wrap that in bubble wrap and tape that in this gap here, because it is such a fragile, dangly little bit that it's so easy for it to get damaged in transit. As it is, because it's attached to the bike, you've got the wheel around it, then it's pretty well protected. So in we go. As I say, this box is really big, so there's plenty of room. Next thing is dropping in the front wheel. I quite like taking off the rotor from any loose wheels. Depending on what kind of disc brake you've got, you'll either have center lock or you'll have 6 bolts. Center lock, slightly easier to remove, but you do need a special tool to do it. So obviously, again, need to remember to take that with you if you're traveling with it. Today, we're going to take the risk. What I will do though is bubble wrap around it. And we've also actually got a sheet of cardboard between the frame and the bike. And I'm turning it in so the disc rotor is facing inside, just to make it a little bit less likely that it's going to take any hits on the outside of the frame and bend the rotor, because I have had a bent rotor in transit before. So last thing to do in terms of loading the bike in anyway is just wrapping the seat post, whoa, with the biggest bit of bubble wrap that you've got. This is less about protecting the seat post and more about just making sure it doesn't scratch the bike frame. Let's get a bit of tape. Once again, it's one of those things where spend an extra couple of minutes now and it's so worth it. If only just have that peace of mind that when you're sitting on the plane and you're watching the baggage handlers chucking the box around, you know that everything in there is nice and secure and well padded. Let's put that there. What I'm just doing is looking for sort of convenient size spaces for everything, just to padding things out and fitting them together so they're not going to rattle around in the box. The other thing that's useful to do with that is usually if I'm flying with my bike, I'll try not to take another carry-on bit of luggage. So like all the clothes, all the bike packing bags go into this bike box as well. It's worth double checking what the weight limit is for the plane that you're using, but as long as you're packing reasonably lightly, and obviously if you've got bike packing stuff, there's not a huge amount of extra weight, then you should be absolutely fine. But it's worth always just dropping it on the scales to finish. And here, I'm just looking for, again, any spaces, anywhere that I think the bike is going to rattle around or potentially something is rubbing against something else. So we're just on to the last few bits and pieces now, really. First thing is, don't forget the pedals that you've just taken off. That would be disappointing. I actually got my riding shoes here, and assuming you're not flying in them, which I have done before, then it's worth just packing the riding shoes. I normally just shove my pedals inside one shoe. So again, yeah, the multi-tool that you used, you don't want that in your carry-on luggage because they'll probably take it off you. So just pop it away somewhere secure, maybe in your frame bag, something like that, somewhere where you'll be able to find it easily at the other end. And then finally, just topping up any spaces with leftover bubble wrap. Ideally just kind of filling it up, so just in case the box gets turned over or whatever, you never know what's going to happen, then everything is secure. And that's about it. Last thing to do is fold it up and tape it up and you're good to fly.